Good morning. Welcome to Chaos Maker's Hobby House. If you're new here, my name's Alexandra. I garden on just over 1/8 of an acre, 0.16 acres. Take out the size of the house, and obviously that's a little smaller. My garden is roughly 200 square feet of gardening space, not including the walkways, and that's all of my backyard garden. So I want to show you how much you can actually grow on such a small space and give you an early June tour. Now, this particular garden plot is about 3 years old. I started working on it right after I bought my house just over 3 years ago. I have extended it time and time again, but this is really the only full sun spot in my yard. I am in a tight neighborhood, lots of fences, lots of houses, and it really does cast a lot of shadows throughout the yard. So even though I do have more property to potentially utilize, more land that doesn't have garden on it, it just gets a lot of shade and doesn't get enough consistent sunlight to really grow anything. So I am limited to about 200 square feet. I want to actually measure all that out one day and get an exact number. I have two plots in my backyard that average out to roughly 200 square feet. And then my front yard is actually full sun all the time, but it's a small space and I use it primarily for fruit trees. I do live in an HOA and I'm not sure how they would feel about raised garden beds in the front yard. So we just stick with fruit trees and sneak other items in here and there where we can. So as a quick reminder, this is what my garden looked 2 weeks ago. And this is what it looks like now. I love the difference you can see in it's in 2 weeks. It's astonishing. And one of my favorite parts, the entrance, is just this wonderful green bean tunnel. Look at them all hanging. And it looks like the Japanese beetles might finally be moving on. I mean, just look at them all. These big purple ones are Blahilde pole beans. So I've got this whole side as just those pole beans. And let me tell you, they are so prolific. I'm picking handfuls every single day. And on the other side of the arch, if the sun doesn't blind you too much, is Kentucky Wonder pole beans. This is the staple I always grow when it comes to any kind of green beans. They just remind me of home. This is what I grew with my dad when I was growing up. So this side, unfortunately, has been absolutely decimated by Japanese beetles. It does look like they are finally starting to move on. Luckily, they're seasonal and they stick around for about a month, but they do a number on things during that month. But it'll recover, and we're starting to get bean production again. But it's absolutely wild. They really have no interest in the purple beans. Like, the foliage is almost flawless. There's a couple they may have nibbled on, but for the most part, they didn't touch them. Look at the comparison. They also really didn't touch my bush beans except for the purple teepee, which they completely defoliated. But these are all new leaves. So these had absolutely no leaves on them. So all these are new leaves, and hopefully they'll start producing here again soon. I wish I had some advice for you on how to deal with Japanese beetles. They are the bane of everyone's existence in the South this time of year. But I've tried everything. I've tried all the organic methods, and I try not to use anything that isn't organic. I'm not against people who do. It's just I have a tendency to come out to my garden and kind of snack as I go without washing anything, so I don't want to risk it. The only thing that I found that works for me is planting early enough where the plants are mature enough and established enough to survive the onslaught of the beetles' attack. They only stick around for about a month, so as long as they can get through that, they'll get a chance to recover. But I've tried the neem oil, I've knocked them into soapy water, I've sprayed garlic spray, I've hung the bait trap bags away from my garden. I've treated my yard with milky spore. They just come over from the neighbor's yard. So it's pretty much just hunkered down and waited out. And my squash this year, oh my goodness. I don't think I've had a squash year quite as good as this one. I mean, they're everywhere. I'm harvesting squash every day, which I am thrilled about because it is my favorite of all time. And of course, we get to deal with pretty severe pest pressure for squash here. We got the squash vine borers and the squash bugs. I need to get that picked. And they usually take out the plants pretty early on, but I've been extra vigilant this year, and everything is doing really, really well. I mean, don't get me wrong, still dealing with squash vine borers, but my surgery and injecting BT methods have been working really well. They didn't really establish into the plants until very, very recently. But usually the borers actually get into my plants a lot earlier than they did this year, and I chalk that up to just being vigilant about searching for eggs, scraping them off, doing my preventative sprays, just to be on the safe side if I missed any eggs, and they're holding on a lot better. The plants are a lot stronger, a lot healthier. I'm just honestly shocked with how well it's going. Knock on wood, because it never goes this well. I usually have to succession sow and be out here every day looking for any signs of damage, but happy squash. Can you tell I like them? I think I have 19 different varieties, or 19 different plants, and I can't remember how many varieties. I'll have to count. And this is my tomato wall. I have 8 varieties of tomatoes. I've actually been struggling a little bit with tomatoes this year. I mean, that's lovely. Nothing's ripened yet, but we're getting close. But I've noticed a lot of people are struggling with tomatoes this year. It's not just me, although I think some of the issues I'm currently running into are 100% my fault. Let me show you. So early on, when I first started planting these out, they were very stunted, just lacking a little bit of vigor. So I went a little fertilizer crazy, and then we didn't get any rain at all. We have had such a dry year so far, and none of that fertilizer ended up getting washed into the ground. I mean, I was watering, but it wasn't soaking it in as well as it normally would. You want to make sure you're giving your garden the proper nutrition and doing regular fertilization, and try to stick to a fertilizer schedule. But you also have to take into account, is it a fast-acting fertilizer? Is it a slow-release fertilizer? I generally use granule-type fertilizers that are slow-release. We usually have a lot more rain than what we've had. It's been so dry. So what happened is I fertilized. We didn't get any rain. But because I heavily mulch and my plants are large and shade out the soil really well, my soil wasn't drying out. So I wasn't watering consistently. Didn't need to. Soil wasn't dry. But that means the fertilizer wasn't getting washed into the soil. So then my little reminder goes off and says, hey, it's been this long since you fertilized your garden. It's time to do it again. And I did. And again, it didn't rain. And I only watered a handful of times because my soil wasn't drying out. And then the reminder goes off again and says, hey, it's time to fertilize again. And so on and so forth, and it still hasn't gotten washed into the soil. So when I do water, or it does finally rain, that buildup of fertilizer that's just beneath the surface, not quite at the roots yet, all of a sudden got washed through the soil. And basically overdosed my plants on fertilizer and burnt them. Prominently noticeable on my tomatoes. You see this one, although it does have a nice fruit cluster set, it's generally just paler. So this side I didn't burn too bad. I don't know why, but they're looking okay. However, this side, which is 2 separate sections of the garden bed, so this side really isn't having any issues. this side is. This side I've had pale leaves, a little bit of crunchiness, wilted dying leaves, and really, really spindly, sparse, kind of curly looking leaves. I've even had stems that completely dry up and look at that, there's nothing in there. So yeah, 99% sure that is all over fertilization to the point where it was burning the roots. So now I'm trying to give these a good drowning daily, water them really deeply every single day here until I start seeing some improvement, try to flush some of that excess fertilizer out of the soil. But still flowering, so kind of jiggle them, helps them fruit, because tomatoes are self-pollinating. You just have to give it a little bit of agitation so it actually knocks the pollen down to the stamen. I'm getting distracted. Anyway, this is the 8th wonder of the world tomato. We got a couple fruits going on there. This black from Tula tomato actually suffered, you can kind of see the remnants. Get off there, fly. Kind of see the remnants right there. There's a bit of a fungal disease, and it stunted back, and I clipped it back to next to nothing, clipped off everything that was yucky. It's probably down to there, and then suddenly I gave it a little bit of copper fungicide, and it's regrowing and looking fantastic, so we're giving it a chance, and I'm going to come through and cut off the rest of the disease now that there's some leaves to replace it. But this one's impressing me. This is massive. This is the Acres tomato. But just look at that fruit. Oh, it's so lovely. Look at this little thing. This is a Tidy Treats cherry tomato. It finally started to grow. They stay very, very compact and bushy. It's a determinate type. But you can see this is how tall it is now compared to the rest of the tomatoes. But don't let that fool you, because there is fruit everywhere. None of it has started to ripen yet, though. None of the tomatoes are ripening. But I'm sure they're not too far behind. There's fruit everywhere. Oh, look! An okra flower is starting to open up. These are so pretty. But I've been getting the odd okra here and there. Not really enough to do anything with yet, but it's still very, very early. Man, those are so pretty. Anyway, I do have a watermelon in here. I think it's the Cajo watermelon. It is an icebox variety. It's not going to get more than like 4 to 6 pounds, I believe, but we actually do have little melons starting. So quite excited about that. Oh, and there's a female flower I gotta pollinate just to make sure it gets done, in case the bees are busy. There we go. And that has been starting to be trained to go up this trellis. But on either side of them, I have my sweet peppers planted. Again, I think, lovely. I think this is partially flea beetle issues, partially over fertilization. They're growing, not quite as vigorous as expected, but they are growing. And you can definitely see all that pitting there, all those tiny little holes. Flea beetles. They usually don't do too much like harm to the plant. They just make it look not great. But when you get a lot of them, they can damage the leaves enough so they're not really going through the chlorophyll process as effectively as they could be. And then this little guy, it's probably like the 4th time I've planted it, a little Bikino pepper. The first one, just failure to thrive, it died back once I transplanted it. And then the second one got eaten by slugs. And the third one, I think, got eaten by slugs again. So now at night I'm actually covering it up with a little cup and then uncovering it during the day. But it's doing better. It's looking a lot healthier. So fingers crossed this one actually takes. Luckily peppers like the heat, so it's not the end of the world that it is a little bit behind the rest, because it'll thrive in the sun. Let me go to the other side. The banana pepper is definitely not failing to show up. This thing is, it's looking fantastic. And we got a banana pepper there. Now she's ready to pick, but I mean, it's just one. And I don't have any need for it right now, so I'm just gonna let it stay on there. When they start turning color, like to get into their orange, they get a little bit sweeter, so might be a snacking pepper. And the Italian pepperoncini. Again, I think this was a fertilizer issue. Lost all its upper foliage, and I flushed it really well, and it's starting to grow back pretty well at the top, so I learned my lesson. Slow down, slowly roll with the fertilizer. And then we got the kabachi peppers doing pretty good. It does get a little bit more shade back here, so it's going to be a little slower grower. I fully expected this thing to be out of here by now. I don't know how it hasn't bolted and how it's trucking along so well, but that's Brussels sprouts. It's June in South Carolina, and I have a brassica that hasn't bolted. Even though it's been 90 degrees every day, it's supposed to be 93 today, I expected this to be pulled out a long time ago. Long before it ever got in the way of the tomatoes, long before ever shaded out the peppers, but here we are. And I'm just still watching to see what happens. Oh, here's something that's kind of cool. When I started having all those fertilizer issues, I actually noticed a large sucker on, I believe, my Acres tomato that I had missed. So I clipped it off, and it was too perfect. I couldn't just chuck it into compost. So I just stuck it in the ground. Just the cutting, stuck it right in the ground, gave it a little bit of water, a little bit of time, and it rooted. And now I have a lovely tomato plant that isn't affected by all the over-fertilization. Well, yeah, I want to say it rooted in a few days. It didn't take long. It was like under a week. And back here is that lychee tomato. That thorny little devil that I showed you 2 weeks ago that is growing up real quick. Let's see if you can see some of the thorns now. Look at those. Imagine when this thing gets bigger. It's just going to be absolutely painful to handle. But I'm really excited to try the fruit because it's not like a classic tomato. It's like a fruity tomato. You got a cherry, but you can see the leaves even have thorns. It is in the corner of my garden that doesn't get all that much travel. It's not really in the way of anything because it gets big and it gets mean. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. I'll see what that turns into because I've never had lychee tomato before. And supposedly it's not frost tender either. It'll survive a frost. Another thing that shouldn't be here anymore, and it is absolutely in the way, it's shading out a couple squash. The two that aren't looking amazing, of course, the one's shaded out by this. But I keep hoping that it'll form a head, cauliflower head, but nothing. Nothing. But it's not wilting, it's not insect damaged, it's not bolted. It's I need to just pull it out. It's not going to produce anything. But I hate pulling out things that are doing so well. And got another one over here. This one's a lot smaller, but it did produce a head. Although this one has been absolutely tormented by caterpillars, and I guarantee there are a few in there. I already pulled one out, so maybe I'll yoink that out and see what's it about today. Alright, well I have a little bit of harvesting to do here. Let me grab a squash, grab the beans. Then we'll move on to the next one, to the next garden bed, which is probably one of my favorites right now. It's the one that holds the most potential. I get these patty pans relatively small or else they get very seedy. Oh, the cucamelon's growing like a weed. And flowering. But still no little cucamelons on there. See, like, little soon to be, but Anyway, I'm getting distracted. I need to get the beans. I got some picking to do. I'll be right back. Holy smokes. And that's just one day. Talk about burden of abundance. I still have to pick the Kentucky Wonder Beans. I've got some preserving in my future. Okay, well, there's absolutely no way I'd be able to use all that before it goes bad. Especially if I'm getting it every day. But the thing about beans, the thing about most plants that bear any kind of edible fruit or vegetable, if you don't pick them as they're ripe and you let them stand for too long, the plant thinks, oh, I did my job. I made seeds. Mission complete. And then they'll stop. So you have to keep harvesting even if you don't need any of it, just to keep the plant producing through the rest of the year. So I have a feeling I'll be paying my mother-in-law a visit today and giving her some garden goodies for sure, because that's a lot. Even if I were to preserve all my excess, I mean, granted, I'd never run out, but you gotta share it while it's fresh too. That's half of what I love about a garden is being able to share. Okay, moving on to the next chaos. Let me show you the before from 2 weeks ago real quick. Okay, so this was 2 weeks ago. And this is now. That's Golden Bantam sweet corn. It's only supposed to get 5 to 6 feet tall. I mean, that's like 10, 11 feet tall now. Yeah. It's a disaster zone. Let's dive in. So, it's up through my arch, which it wasn't really even planted that close to. My loofah has grabbed onto it and is making friends. I guess it's happy. I guess it's healthy this year. But we've got lots of corn. The Japanese beetles were eating the silks off of a lot of them. You see how that one got a lovely little haircut. But hopefully there's enough left where it'll be able to get pollinated and we can get full ears. I've got one. I mean, it's going to be pickable any day now. And cobweb in the face, in the mouth. Ugh. But anyway, look at this. Oh, it's so close to ready. I kind of want to peel it open and check it, but I don't want to check it if it's too soon. I've never had corn this early, but it feels like it's full all the way to the top. Oh, it's a good corn year. I'm so excited. And this is not a big plot. I do have to help it along with a little bit of shaking the tassels to release some pollen, make sure it falls on the silks, just because it is small. But it's doing fabulous. The little sunflowers poking in there. Dad's birdseed that a bird planted for me. That's fine. Oh, so what else I got growing over here? I have a Lilanu Sweet Glow melon. Look at that! That thing was hiding from me up until like yesterday or the day before. I had no idea it was there. It was just... Can you see it? Just disappears. But what I forgot is apparently this gets to about 36 pounds. So we'll see if it actually gets that big. But clearly we're going to get fruit there. I've got cantaloupe. No, why do I always confuse them? So I need a shirt. I need a shirt that says honeydew cantaloupe with cantaloupe crossed out. Honeydew is flowering really well. Oh, hi, Mr. B. We do have a little bit of yellowing here. That might be, I don't know. So I gave it a little bit of a fertilizer boost, but now that I know what's going on with my tomatoes, I'm wondering if this is over fertilized too. I don't think so. definitely wasn't as aggressive over here with the fertilizers. So I gave it a little bit of top off of some nitrogen because lower leaves turning yellow. It's a nitrogen deficiency most of the time, and watered it in really well. We'll see what happens, but I mean the rest of the plant, it looks fine. It's really just the lower leaves. But we've got ridge gourds forming. Now, this is a type of loofah. You peel it for the sponge inside, but you can also eat it when it's about this size, actually, like a summer squash. Let's see, there are more. Oh yeah, there's another one. Another one. Oh, and we have a white loofah. Normally seeds in loofah are jet black, but the seeds in this one were white and the skin is a lot lighter. So I was very curious to see how it would do here. The one I grew last year that was just a standard loofah didn't have the densest sponge texture, so I wanted to get something that maybe had a denser sponge. So this is the white loofah, and it's doing fantastic. I mean, this thing will be very, very full here soon, but look at their flowers. That's the loofah flower. They bloom in the morning. The ridge gourd blooms at night, so of course, oh, I shouldn't say night, evening, but it means that I don't have anything to show you for those flowers. I can show you a picture. And this is just the standard green loofah. Now you can see how much darker it is compared to the white loofah. But everything's starting to show up and lots of flowers. One day I'm going to be swimming in loofah. I'm just going to have so much surplus that I will never need it to grow it again. Yep. Sweet potatoes are looking mighty Japanese beetle ridden, but there's no Japanese beetles on them currently. So the numbers have been depleting. They're still here, not nearly as bad. So hopefully things will start recovering, but they're filling in. I planted a few more slips, so I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 slips. It's probably all I'm gonna do for this year, and I'll just let it run along the ground once the corn is out and reroot all through there and give me more potatoes. But everything's looking so good. So good. Oh, you can see another Japanese beetle haircut there. Now into the front yard, we will see if the birds saved me any berries. See what's going on there. Everything's blooming. It's so pretty. So let me show you. So my Dorman red raspberries, I have a lot of fruit coming, but of course, as soon as they start to ripen, the birds get them. So I was like, that's not ripe enough yet, but I bet you here in a couple hours when it is, it won't be there anymore. So if anyone has any good ideas on how to protect this area from the birds while still allowing it to be accessible, I am all ears. If I do bird netting, then it'll just be kind of a nightmare to get in here. Oh, there's one. And I kind of need to be able to access it from both sides. I've tried bird netting, but because it's so thorny, it just gets tangled up so bad. So let me know your thoughts. But there are so many, and I've only had a handful. I've got like decoy owls like everywhere, but it doesn't seem to be helping. So really the only ones I'm getting are the ones that are deep inside the thorns that the birds can't really get to. So my arms get scratched up, but it's more than I've been getting. You can see I can maneuver it here. That's what they do. They eat half of it and leave the rest on the plant. But if you have any ideas on how I can kind of bird proof this a little bit better while still being able to access it in a way that looks decent, because it is my front yard and I do have an HOA, let me know. Do have some watermelon vines crawling through my front garden area. That's orange tender sweet, I believe. I grew that one last year and they are delicious. It just keeps going and going and going. Then I think over here we have Black Diamond. And then another Lilanu Sweet Glow that kind of winds into the flower bed area. Sorry, the neighbor's AC's kicked on. Then Nancy Garrison Passion Fruit. About the same as last week. About the size they're going to get. They should turn purple when they're ripe and start to get a little wrinkly, so just keeping an eye on those for now. Over the winter, I had moved all my Siam tulips and my torch ginger, give them a little bit more space and sun, and I was really afraid that I damaged the bulbs in the process, but was really excited when I saw everything starting to pop up. Well, not only are they popping up, they're getting ready to flower. So that fills my heart knowing that these survived. And it looks like the torch ginger is actually sending off side shoots. This thing is absolutely stunning when it gets going. Oh, I can't wait to show you. More Japanese beetle damage on the canna lilies. There's more over here. Yeah. Pomegranate is still blooming. Still only has that one fruit set, so see what happens. I got a few sunflowers coming up. This is just very much so in transition. It's the Lapin Sweet Cherry I had to cover because of the beetles. Oh, one of my dahlias is blooming. I started this from seed, so I didn't necessarily expect them to be blooming this year. Oh, that's pretty. It's a little peachy color. Oh, another one. I have really no idea what kind of dahlias these are. That one bloomed to white. It was just a seed mix that someone gave me, and it's been fun to see what opens up. Hopefully this area will fill in nicely now that I've got the soil amended and fixed up. Oh, there's another watermelon coming. And another. Oh, we're gonna have good watermelons this year. But all the flowers are starting to fill in. It's a pincushion flower, scabiosa, blanket flower, some echinacea or cone flowers. This is my little star cherry, or Suriname cherry. It's been killed back by multiple frosting. Has come back every year. Hoping one year it actually gets strong enough. And fruits, we'll see. Look at these. I think these are a variety of dianthus. I could be wrong. I really don't remember. But that's a beautiful color. Another dianthus. I had to deadhead all this because it had stopped producing, just like vegetables. Once they make seeds, they think their job is done and they stop. So you take all the old flowers off, you can promote them to start reflowering again. I could use y'all's help on this. This is a hold on, why is there a bee coming after me? Stop it. That bee really liked me. But this is a purple verbena, I think it is, and it blooms beautifully all year. And I cut it back down to next to nothing over the winter, hoping it would solve the issue, but the center always browns out on me, and it just gets really green and pretty on the outside. And then I've cut it back, and it regrows, and is lush for a time being, and then the center browns out again. Didn't do that the first year I had it. It stayed green through the whole thing and got really bushy. So you could tell me how to fix this so it stays green in the center too. I don't mind if there's no flowers in the center. I just want it to look full. It's kind of reaching the end of strawberry season, and they're very much so running now. But we do have more flowers, and it is trying to set fruit again, so we might get another flush of strawberries, which would be really nice. I kind of had to restart all my strawberries this year due to a crown rot issue. So replaced all the soil, got all new plants of different varieties, and when we're trying again, So I didn't really get much with strawberries this year. It'd be nice if we had a nice flush. I mean, definitely a few coming along. And the Ann's Golden Raspberries, no issues with the birds. Amazing. And I'm getting a lot off of this every day. But the Japanese beetles really loved it. You can see their handiwork. And they started going after the berries here as well. So pretty much I have to get up real early and kind of beat them to it. And any that ripen throughout the day, they end up taking out. But let me see if I can find any that are ripe. Pardon the lawnmowers in the background. Whew. There we go. These are very much so slowing down now, but they are an everbearing variety, so they will come around with another flush here soon. It's just the Japanese beetle stress always does a number on them. Plus the beetles eat the berries. So I'd say give it another month and we'll probably get another flush of those. And these are a complete accident. They were supposed to be red raspberry, but they were mislabeled, and I didn't find out until 2 years later when they started fruiting. But happy accident. They're pretty good. Yeah, almost forgot to mention the strawberries I have in the backyard here. Again, had to restart this and got a new green stalk so I could grow more, but I mean, it's flowering. Tiny, but it's flowering, and Japanese beetle damage. But, so it was kind of a lackluster strawberry year, but I mean, we'll see what happens. And oh, that's why I was telling you about the crown rot. So they look green and beautiful and lush and like that until one day they just start wilting and it's all downhill from there. Yeah, but the ones I put in this container with the old ones, which there's only a handful of surviving plants from my old strawberries, they're all resistant to that crown rot, so shouldn't be an issue having them in. And all that's new soil except for the bottom tier, and since these are all basically containers stacked on top of each other, there should be no issue with the soil contaminating the other soils. Well, the burden of abundance is real. It's that time. It's that time where I need to start figuring out what to do with everything, because it's far more than me and my husband can eat as it comes in. And we get to the point where the freezer is packed, jars are packed, everything's packed. And that's when the neighbors and love us and our family members get a lot of garden goodies, which nobody complains. And I love sharing it. I love growing it, and I love sharing it, and I love eating it. If I have enough growing to share and eat and preserve, I'm happy. I'm happy. Oh, in the short time that we were talking, the okra flower completely bloomed. Ta-da! Oh, she's so pretty. Oh, I can't get over them. They have the absolutely prettiest flowers. It's the little things. Garden just brings me so much joy. And that's what it should. I mean, yeah, it's not easy. It comes with a lot of work, pests, disease, potential heartbreak, but when things go right, it's heartwarming. But anyway, this goes to show you how you can grow a lot of food on a very small amount of space. I mean, consider those green stalks that I have my strawberries in. They take up 1 square foot of space. 1 square foot. You could do a lot in a green stalk. You can do more than just strawberries. I just do strawberries because if I don't put my strawberries up, then these slugs will get them. But you can grow tomatoes, believe it or not, peppers. They have support structures that go around the whole tower and will support larger plants. Beans, herbs, lettuces, brassicas. I tried growing watermelon in it once, and although, you know, it does end up taking up a little bit more than 1 square foot because it ended up sprawling on the ground around the green stalk, it did work. I didn't try large ones. I tried sugar baby, which were just, you know, tiny little icebox ones. I don't think you'd really be able to keep it watered enough and with enough nutrients in to support a large watermelon, but it's worth a shot. But you can grow a lot in them, and that only takes up 1 square foot. So why not grow? My garden's 200-ish square foot. I've got beans coming out my ears. Today's harvest alone was over a pound. It was 1.2 pounds. That's pretty great. I've got like 23 squash plants between 14 and 19 varieties, and that's just because I'm obsessed with squash. So you definitely don't need to do that many. Got 8 tomato plants. I've got okra, peppers, cucamelons, brassicas that are amazingly still going, watermelons. What else do I got? Got all sorts of things. And then corn, well, yeah, it is easier to do if you have a large plot. It's a lot less hands-on. But if you have the extra time to just put into, helping pollinate them in the morning, then you can still get a great yield of corn. My corn bed, I think, is 8 feet by 3 feet. So not huge. And arches make the difference. Trellises make the difference. Grow up, not out, and you can fit a lot more into a small space. Like, look at this squash. That's in a tomato cage. Look at how little space it takes up compared to that squash. So, grow up, not out. Anyway, thanks for joining me. It was probably a little bit of a long one, a little rambly. Very, very excited that it's going as well as it is, and I want to share. If you have any questions, suggestions, I would love to hear them. And thanks for joining me today and all the days you do. Have a good one. Bye.